We're gonna get it down.
You don't know that?
Yeah. Wagon.
Thank you.
Can you see better?
Huh?
Can you see better? Okay. Hopefully, Juice is going to bring me down an easel. Okay, I'm going to put the diagram on the board first this morning. And use that as actually, I should do the dead people first. Yeah. Can you move that? Put that on this side.
If we say that they have to do Kalitza because later on we don't, so why do they let the guys marry the girls to begin with?
Well, we gotta, that's a bigger question. No, I wouldn't say bigger. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Usually there's one down here. So. Whoa, what happened?
The curtain is broken.
No, it's not. I didn't.
You want this seat? You'll take that one?
I'd rather sit here.
Where?
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind.
When you move.
Thank you. Okay, learning sponsors the year of learning by Sue and Ani Gerlich in memory of Malka Proman and Philip Mann, and Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Prolazna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In the memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monestin, Nefama Azna bat Yitzhak Ahalo. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Zecher Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. Today is the 3rd, and we have a day of learning by B. Worden in memory of her father, Shmuel ben Yosef. And we also have a month of learning that ends, no, it's going to be a wrong date. It's not from 2:25 to 6:3. Okay. I'm assuming
2.5.
I don't know. Okay, we'll finish up an honored month in honor of Lydia and Abe Krause's 50th anniversary. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I said. It probably ends today. Okay. Can't be right. Okay, so I want to put a diagram up and use that as a jumping off point for the Gemara. Okay. All right, as we usually do, let's start off with our Okay, we've got three brothers, right? Let's call them Reuven,
Shimon and Levi.
Shimon, and Levi. Okay. All right. Now, for the time being, Levi is single. Okay. But remember that, but they're all in existence at the same
He doesn't
time.
have to be single.
He doesn't have to be,
He
but
could have other wives.
he could.
Have
but
12 wives.
It could be, but I want him to be single for right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Reuven and Shimon are married. Okay. To two women.
Each is married.
Each is married to two women. Okay.
One of them.
And these two women are sisters.
So they're Leah and Rachel.
So that's who they are. I like Rachel and Leah better. All right.
But Leah's the older one.
That's so what. So maybe you like the younger one then. Okay.
Yeah, but the older brother should marry the older girl.
The other two sisters.
Okay, now the other two wives are not
Just women.
sisters. Okay. Okay, we're going to call one for the moment Shifra, and we call the other one Pua. Okay. Now, let's say what happens.
How biblical.
Okay. Reuven dies. Okay. All right. So now it would appear that Shimon has the responsibility to do Yibum, right? Okay.
He's allowed to
He
have
could-
more than one wife.
Okay. Well, come on, let's pay attention. All right. Okay. All right. So Reuven dies. Shimon has a responsibility to do Yibum. Okay. Now, if you were Shimon, who would you choose to do Yibum
Shifra.
with? Who could you choose?
Shifra.
Shifra. Okay, why? Why?
Because she's prettier.
Because Rachel is the sister of Leah. Okay,
So they can't marry.
all right, everybody with me.
That makes sense.
Shimon now dies.
Before or after?
For the moment, it doesn't matter. For the moment. Okay, that comes, you're right, it's a good question. We'll eventually get to that. Did they die in different order? Did they die at the same time? Okay, all these things, right? Now, Levi's got four. Okay, who does Levi do Yibum with?
That means nobody did Yibum or Chalitza
Okay.
yet. Shimon didn't. He died prior
Shimon died
to.
prior, let's say, to
Okay,
being
fine.
able to do Yibum to Shifra.
Ideally, Shifra more.
So why would you want to not say Shifra would be the most logical one?
Oh, well, that's what that's going to be part of our thinking. That's part of our question. That's why I'm presenting this first before we jump into the Gemara.
Very good.
Okay? All right? So, in theory, could Levi do Yibum with either Rachel or Leah?
Yes.
No,
Either.
Because it's-
no, because they have Zikas to him, and therefore each one is the sister of a Zika.
So if I
and that
hold,
makes her like a
if I
wife.
hold
If you
the
say
Yesh-
Yesh
if I hold Yesh Zika, okay, then that's a problem doing Yibum here.
I say there's no secret, so there's no problem.
If I say there's no Zika,
depends how good looking. she is.
okay, if I say there's no Zika, then there isn't a problem. Okay? Now, the Gemara is going to introduce to us a new well, yes, sir.
Why can't I say that they are HSO?
They are. Yeah, but they're both dead, so that's what you do Yibum with.
Okay, that's the,
But the Torah tells us I can't take one, if my sister,
so, but that's where, but that's the whole point of Yibum, is
Right.
that if I claim Yesh Zika, okay, then
claim that
there's,
shit, you're telling me you're not claiming it.
no, I'm saying
Either
there are
way.
some who hold Yesh Zika,
Okay.
there are some who hold Ein Zika, and part of the problem with today's Gemara is Shmuel, we don't know whether he
He
holds one
seems
or
to
the
hold
other.
both.
We don't know for sure what he holds.
Well, Rav Shmuel said.
Not Shmuel. Okay,
Not Rob.
all right, now, I'm going to suggest the following, and as we get into it, I'm sure others will help contribute to the discussion, okay? The Gemara introduces yesterday, but which focuses in today, the difference between what I'm going to call, in my language, an inferior versus chalitza versus a superior chalitza. Okay, I'm going to use that language. Art Scroll and Koren they have the same concept in their translations, but they use different languages. Okay, but I just found it easier to think in terms of inferior versus superior. Okay, so yesterday's Gemara gave us a situation where it where it introduces that, I'll call it for the moment, concept, exactly, that perspective. And that's one of the main items that we're going to have to deal with today.
Okay,
Okay.
if Levi would have selected Rachel,
If Levi selects Rachlia,
would we have the problem with the two sisters?
Right.
not only do you have the problem with the two sisters, but then there's a problem. Then there could be even a problem with the
Other ladies.
co-wives.
But I'm saying if Levi selected only Rachel, he did not select the two sisters.
Well, she is a sister.
But she's a sister of somebody that he has a Zika to. So therefore, that's a problem. But not only is it a problem here, it's also a problem for these two. Because we're going to see that that's an issue as well.
Zika Psula doesn't putter the other
Right.
co-wife.
All right, if this,
I hear what you're saying.
okay? All right, so I wanted to present this initially.
But if he does,
Yeah, we'll go into that as we go through the Gemara, right? Okay? So we've got issues of, is that you hold by Zika, or you not hold by Zika? Do you say with whom, that if you're going to say in certain situations, okay, that in one case, it is a inferior chalitza. Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second, right? All right, that's why anyway, okay, so that's going to impact on the co-wife, right? So I'm going to leave this up.
and nobody seems to challenge that there are different levels of chalitza.
Okay,
That seems
all
to
right.
be accepted on its face.
So what happens? Who is it that first raises this? Back on Kaf Vav Amud Beis, okay, we see, which is a short Amud, but, okay, we see, okay, the following, about the 4 lines down, okay, regarding Rav's view, where he's challenged. And he says, Amar le Rava, I'm just jumping back to that to show
Rav in
that's,
the name of Rav.
right? Okay, and regarding Rav, midika amat emtsait tzricha chalitza mishnehem, if you're arguing that this woman, this was the third sister, okay, where we were saying, where the argument was, one brother does one sister, one brother does another sister, and the third brother does both, okay, all right. Kasavat yesh zika, if you hold that this is Zika, Vahavya la Chalitza Pesula. So this is where this concept is initially presented, and the one of the texts that I use for says as follows. I'm going to read it in Hebrew explanation and then translate. Chalitza Pesula, Chalitza Gerua, it says. A lower level. That's why I use the word inferior, right? Shekol Chalitza Ba'a b'makom shelo haya nitan lekayim mitzvat yibum. Any chalitza where it's done, where the option of yibum is not available, okay? Chalitza gerua hi. It is an inferior chalitza, okay? Now, some might even argue and use psula here as an invalid chalitza.
Invalid to the other women. That's what the psula.
Right. Okay. All right.
It's valid to her.
Yeah, we'll get to that right in the text. Okay, you're right. Okay, so what I want us to see is that this concept is introduced here, okay, but it becomes a major issue as we're going to start, okay, the new daf today. And I didn't mean to take so much time for this, but after yesterday spending about 3 hours preparing the Gemara, it took me that long to come up with a way of how can we present the concept first to help us go through the Gemara. Okay? So what happens? All right, as we go through on the bottom of Kaf Vav Beis, Ushmuel Amar. What does Shmuel say? And I'm starting there because the entire day's shiur today is focused on Shmuel. Okay? Ushmuel Amar, Echad Choletz Lekulan. Shmuel says in that situation where I described, one brother can do chalitza to all 3 women. Actually, he can do it to any one of the 3. Okay? Mikdi Shema'inan Le L'Shmuel Damar. Why? Because in this particular, in another place, Shmuel says to us, Chalitza Ma'alya Ba'inan. We need a superior, okay, kind of chalitza. The Amar Shmuel, as Shmuel says, and now we get to today's daf. Kav Zayin Amud Aleph, the top. Chalatz la'achayot lo niftaru tzarot. That if, in our case, Levi does chalitza to one of the sisters, okay, and he's talking about the example that was from yesterday. Okay, one of the 3, okay, that does not exempt any Kohen. I know, but that's the yesterday's model, right? Which I couldn't draw on the board. Okay, but today we're going to come back to this. Okay, so now we're starting on the top of Zion Amud, right? Heiche de kaima chalitza de Shimon chalitza kashera, where we can maintain that the chalitza done by Shimon is a valid or better chalitza. Chalitz la Ruvain chalitza psula. Then the other brother, Ruvain, his chalitza would be a inferior. Okay, one. So the Gemara asks, what did Shmuel mean when he said in that case yesterday, okay, where we had 3 sisters, okay, and let's say 2 Yabam, all right, 2 Yabamim, yeah, okay, that one could do one could do another, right, and one could do, right? What did he mean that one? Right, exactly. Okay, I'd have to do another whole picture on the other side to do that. Okay, what about that? So he is saying in one case, it would be a inferior chalitza, in another case, a superior chalitza. Okay? So the Gemara says, Nami the Kamar, why also because he was saying ha'emtza'it, namely the leftover. Okay, it says the middle, but it means the third. Okay? Vahakulan Kamar, says the Gemara. But wait a second, Shmuel actually said of which what he said was all, which would imply all three. Okay, so the Gemara is going to correct that view. Kevan deruba gabe kari le kulan. Since I'm going to say the majority, since that one brother is going to do 2 out of the 3, we're going to say that it's like the majority is like doing it to all of them. Okay, now Gemara picks up. Gemara is going to have a real problem with what Shmuel said. And it's going to give 2 different explanations of Shmuel. Okay? V'bayatim. And if you want, I would say the following. Ki ka'amar Shmuel chalitza ma'al yaba'inen. When Shmuel says that we need I'm going to use the word superior chalitza, Hani mili lemiftar tzarata. That comes to be able to exempt the co-wife. Okay? Aval miftara nafsha, but to exempt herself, patra. She is exempted.
With the low level.
With a lesser level chalitza. Okay? All right. Now, gufa. So the Gemara has to come back and examine. Let's examine Shmuel's statement and try to clarify what he really meant to say. Okay? Going on. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, chalatz la'achayot, lo niftaru tzarot. If one does chalitza to the sisters, he doesn't exempt the co-wives. Okay, so that's what we saw here. If he has chalitza with either Rachel or Leah, it may exempt that particular woman. Okay, right? Okay, but it doesn't exempt the co-wives, Shifra and Pur. Not only that, though, we have another problem. Okay? If Shmuel holds Zika, okay, how he can't do Yibum whatsoever. That's what makes it a inferior chalitza. Why? Because they're sisters. And if you hold Zika, then the status of that relationship, okay, to one's zikuka is almost parallel to achot, to marriage. And we have a clear Torah prohibition, right? That says you can't marry 2 sisters. Exactly.
Well, they eat both a lot.
Okay. Right.
A lot.
Yeah.
You can
Okay.
marry as many sisters as you want if you kill them all.
Right. Okay. So what happens? Let's go on. So what did he say? So therefore, we said, right? Chalatz lachayot lo niftaru tzarot. Litzarot, if he has chalitza to the tzarot, niftaru achayot. Then the sisters are exempted. Okay. So as I try to draw here, the better choice, okay, for chalitza is Shifra or Pur. Okay? But if Reuven and Shimon die at the same time. Okay? Okay? So what happens? All right? Chalatz leba'alat get. So this is further understanding of what Ishmael says. What happens if he had the 2 women, okay, and he gave one a get, okay? And right, chalatz lebalat get, lo niftarat sarah, okay. It may exempt the woman he gave the get to, okay, but she still, even the get, okay, means he didn't completely break the Zika if he holds Zika. Okay,
We had that a few pages ago.
Right.
An option.
okay. In other words, the Rabbanan, okay, it's a, I'm going to use the word partial means of breaking down the relationship, but it's not complete. Okay, it's not complete. So that would be an inferior chalitza in that situation. Oh, yeah. Okay. So what happens? Get lo niftara tzara. That co-wife would not be exempted. Litzara, if he did gave chalitza to the tzara, niftara ba'alat get. Then the Bamas, right? Who with whom he had a ma'amar, a betrothal arrangement, right? Lo niftarat tzara. Okay, that co-wife in that situation would not be exempted. Litzara, if he does it for the tzara, niftara ba'alat ma'amar. Then in that case, not only the co-wife, but the woman with whom he had the betrothal arrangement, okay, but had not done anything else, okay, would be done, and she would not need anything. Now, so the Gemara asks, Ma'ishna la'achayot delo niftaru tzarot. Okay, what is unique or different in regards to the situation with the sisters? That they're an act with that one situation of the sister of a wife through Zika, okay, through Zika connection, right? And we said if you hold Zika, that's almost equivalent to, right, achot isha in marriage. Chalatz l'tzarot, if he does chalitz l'tzarot, nami lo liftaru achayot. Maybe there also we shouldn't say that that exempts the sisters. The havlaho sarot achot isha bezika, because that then would be co-wives of a sister of a wife through Zika. Okay, and we have said you can't marry not only a relative, but a co-wife of that woman through because it's almost like marrying a relative of a married woman, right? Kasava Shmuel. This, right? This must lead us to be of the perspective that Shmuel must be of the opinion Ein Zika. That Shmuel must hold that there is not, he doesn't hold by Zika. However, the Gemara now stops and says, wait a second. V'ha'amar Shmuel. But here we have another statement elsewhere by Shmuel. Yesh Zika. Right? That we said that he does hold by Zika. Okay? L'divrei ha'omer ein Zika kama. So maybe he was only giving an answer according to somebody else who held that there is no Zika, but he himself still holds of the opinion exactly that there is Zika. Okay? Okay, so the Gemara says, Ihachi, if that's the case, chalatz la'achayot, amai lo niftaru tzarot. Okay? If that's the case, if Shmuel really does hold by Zika, I'm Ein Zika, all right, that's what I meant. Okay, then when he does chalitza to the sisters, why doesn't it take care of exactly, Marvin? The co-wives. So the Gemara says, Bishlema tzara derachel lo tepater. That's understandable for the co-wife of Rachel, that she is not exempted. Why? The kevan de chalatz la Okay, because when he does chalitza l'leah, okay, to Leah, v'hadar chalatz l'rachel, okay, then if he did chalitza to Leah, then afterwards goes to Rachel, havile chalitza de Rachel chalitza psula. Then the chalitza that would be done, he did, if he did it after he already did chalitza to Leah, if he did it to Rachel, that would be chalitza psula, an inferior, or even according to some, invalid chalitza. And if it's an invalid chalitza to her, it certainly doesn't exempt, right, the Kohen. Right? Elet Sarah, the Leah tipoter. If that's the case, then the co-wife of Leah, who had the earlier chalitza, which should have been a valid or a superior chalitza, then that co-wife should have been okay. So if that's the point, why then did Shmuel say, right, that if you do chalitza to the sisters, that in general, the co-wives aren't exempted?
What he's talking about is Levi has an option of Yibum or Chalitza prior to Shimon's demise.
And
therefore, it's a Chalitza.
we'll see, right? So the Gemara asks, Mai lo niftaru sarot. If that's the case, if you could argue that Chalitza to Leah, let's say she's the first one he did, okay?
First widow.
Okay, first, whichever's the first widow, that her tzara should be then exempt because that is a superior, valid chalitza. Why then did Shmuel say that in general the tzarot are not covered? Right? That's what the Gemara is asking. Ma'ilo niftaru tzarot. What does that mean when he said that? Nami dekama. Here also we might say, Atzara Rachel, regarding also the co-wife of Rachel. What happened? But Shmuel said, Vahatzarot kama. He said Sarot, the co-wives in plural. Sarot, the Alma, says the Gemara, trying to explain. In general, okay? Co-wives. If that's the case, chalatz, right? Litzarot niftaru achayot. If that's the case, when we say that he did chalitza to the co-wives, the sisters should be exempted, right? Va'atzarat Rachel, mi miftara. Okay, and then we ask the question, and on the co-wife of Rachel, is she, okay, is that woman exempted? Vahatnan. But aren't we taught elsewhere in a different Mishnah, much later, I believe, in the Gemara? Asur Adam b'tzarat chovat chalutzato, that a man is forbidden with the co-wife of the relative of the woman he did chalitza with. Okay, so in other words, if that's the case, these co-wives are not covered. All right? Shmuel Nami. Here too, Shmuel. Hitchil v'lo hitchil kama. Maybe he began and then didn't begin. Okay? Is what he's talking. The Gemara has a problem here trying to, what's this, does it mean? What it is. Beginning with this one, beginning with that one. What is he talking about? Right? Exactly. If we say he began with the sisters, lo yigmor b'tzarot, he can't finish with the co-wives. Ditnan, why? Because we have a Mishnah that teaches asur adam b'tzarat krovat chalutzato. Right? Just what we said, that a man is forbidden with a co-wife related to the woman that he did chalitza with. Hitchil b'tzarot, if he began with the co-wives, Yigmor af ba'achayot.
That's fine.
Then let him finish up with the sisters. Titnan. Why? Because the Mishnah also says, Mutar Adam b'krovat sarat chalutzato. That a man is permitted with the relative of the co-wife of the woman he did chalitza with. Now we're going to get to a further discussion. Rav Ashi is going to attempt to tell us what was the view of Shmuel. On the one hand, we raised the question, Shmuel held Zika. On another hand, we raised the question, he doesn't hold Zika. And what did Shmuel actually mean by what he said? Okay? Rav Ashi Amar, L'olam Kedeka Amart. It's like you said originally. Okay? Umishum delo alima Zika l'shavele l'tzara ka'ava. And the reason is because it's not strong enough to regarding the connection, the relationship, to evaluate the co-wife as somebody who is equal in status to a erva, okay, to a woman who is sexually forbidden. Namely, Tanya Kivate de Rav Ashi. And we have a bright that teaches this according to the view of Rav Ashi as follows. Chalatz la'achayot. If he did chalitza to the sisters, lo niftaru tzarot, then the co-wives are not exempted. Ha l'tzarot, but if he did it to the tzarot, right, niftaru achayot, then the sisters are exempted. My tama, what's the reasoning? Lav mishum de kasavar yesh zika. Wouldn't it not be, okay, that he must hold that there is zika? Velo alima zika l'shavya l'tzara ke'erva. But the zika is not strong enough, okay, to force us to identify the co-wife on an equal basis as an erva. Okay? Now what happens? Amar Rab Abba Bar Memu Hamani, according to whom is that? Right? Beit Shammai. It's your Beit Shammai. Okay, Ditznan, as was taught elsewhere in a Mishnah. Beit Shammai mitirin atzar la'achim. That Beit Shammai permits the brothers, right, to these co-wives.
To keep up with.
Right? If that's the case, okay, or I phrased in other words, why only Chalita? Why not Lam do Yibum? Okay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. No, we're going to say that's not possible because we hold by the recommendation that was made previously by Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Because when there was the situation that Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai had the machloket, and there wasn't time because of war for them to come to a decision, we had earlier that what happened that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri made a suggestion to say do chalitza
and forget about
Yibum.
So you're satisfied.
And that satisfies aspects exactly of both Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Okay, and that was what was accepted. Okay, even though it was a later recommendation, right? Therefore, that was the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Amar, who said, and they review it for us, Bo v'nitakem lahem l'tzarot, shehiyu chotzot v'lo mityabmot. Let us come and make a takana that for these co-wives, they'll need chalitza and not yibum. They'll do that. V'amamar, but there the Gemara told us, Lo hispiku ligmor et hadavar ad shenitlafa hasha'ah, that they didn't have enough time to conclude the issue because of difficulties, wartime, whatever. Okay? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, what did he say? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Acharav chazru v'tiknu.
So they got around to making the takana.
that later on they accepted the suggestion of Rabbi Yochanan Nooi, and they made the takana, and that satisfied both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Okay, now we go on. Okay, Ibaila. So they ask the following question, right on the next one. Ba'alat get ba'alat ma'ama. Okay, we said in one case, okay, we have a situation where he gave the woman a get, which we're saying is the beginning of the dissolution of the marriage. It's not complete dissolution, but it's the beginning. On the other hand, we have a situation where it's ma'amar, where we might say that in that case, it's a drawing closer to the relation, strengthening the relationship, because it indicates a option to go ahead and complete the relationship through bia, because mamar is only the rabbanan, okay? And it's almost like setting up, all right, an actual marriage. Okay.
Did each with two women.
Right. So these two women that are both his Yabama, okay, okay, who takes priority?
Who does he do chalitza with?
Right? Ezemohen Kodem, with whom is their priority? We might think as follows, says the Gemara. Balat Haget Adifa, the woman who received the get might be preferable. Why? Exactly, Ruben. Mishum da'achil ba b'chalitza, because he began the process of dissolving the zika by giving her a get. What he would have to do, though, is to finish the process, he would still have to do chalitza.
But he would have to do beer with the other one first.
Well, we'll see that in a second. We'll see that in a second. Right. Oh, Dilma. Okay. Or perhaps Ba'alat Ma'amara Difa, says the Gemara. Or perhaps doing the first thing is the woman with the betrothal, with the Ma'amar first. Why? Mishum de Krova Labia. Because there's a more closer to culmination, fine, to access, right? Amar Rav Ashi, comes back Rav Ashi now and tells us Tashma, listen to the following. In that machloket, okay? In other words, there's another machloket with regards to Rabban Gamliel and the sages, where there's the two women, okay? And the question is, if you give each woman a get, or if you give each woman a mamar, one after the other, okay, what works and what doesn't, okay? So in that machloket, Rav Ashi is telling us, in that situation, Modeh Rabban Gamliel, sheyesh get acham ma'amam. It wasn't one get and then another get, or one ma'amar and another ma'amar, but it was just following. One woman got a get, one woman got a ma'amar, or one got a ma'amar and one got a get. Okay? Rabban Gamliel, sheyesh get achar ma'amar, u'ma'amar achar get. E get adif. If the get is preferable, lo lahai ma'amar abatre. Okay? Namely, one cannot benefit, allow, right?
But she's gone.
Right? You can't have the ma'amar after it, right? Ve'i ma'amar adif. And if we're saying that the betrothal is preferred, lo lahani get the batre. And you can't allow for the benefit from the get after. Okay. Love shmamina. Rather, we learn from this, right? They're equal in status. Shmamina. Indeed, that's what we learned from that.
So you flip a coin.
Right? Okay. Now we go on to a new piece. Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna Amar Rav, in the name Rav. And he's going to give us a whole brand new scenario. Okay? And I would put a whole new diagram back up on the board for this. All right? Shtei achayot.
You can use this diagram.
Yeah.
You just have to
Add to it. Right. Okay? Two sisters. And remember here we're starting off by saying two sisters. Because as we get through this whole thing, one might forget that. Yibamot. Both sisters are the Zukukot, the Yibamot, are the widows.
and they fall delayed.
Okay? And they fall to the sisters, whatever, they fall to labor. Right? Right? Shenaflu lefnei Yabam echad. And they now come to a single Yabam. Right. Okay? What does he do? Chalatz l'rishona. If he does chalitza to the first woman.
Excuse me, you have to add that the two men did not die simultaneously.
Okay.
Because
The Gemara is going to tell.
one widow is chalutz, is a chalutz prior to
Okay.
the dude dying.
All right. So this one really died first. All right.
And now theoretically, Shimon and Levi could,
Do chalitza. Right.
but
So what?
Shimon dies.
Okay. Maybe Shimon dies before he was able to do anything.
Correct.
Okay. So what happens? Two sisters. Both of them are widows who require yibum. And they fall to the one Yabam. Chalatz l'rishona. He goes ahead and does chalitza with the first one. Shimon, Ruvain's wife. This brother who died first. Okay? Hutra. She's a free woman. Chalatz l'shniya. If he does chalitza to the second woman, second sister, Hutra. Now she's free. Okay. What happens? Now, says the Gemara, Meta Rishona, okay, if the first woman dies,
After her husband's death.
right? She dies, okay? So, Reuben died, and shortly thereafter in our diagram, Rachel dies, right? Mutar Bishniya, okay? Levi can marry Leah, the second sister, okay? Second widowed sister. Ve'ein tzarich lomar, and we certainly don't have to say, excuse me, meta shniya shemutar rishona, okay? That if Levi could marry, because in either case, once one sister dies, that immediately breaks the Torah requirement of living sisters. Okay? And so therefore, if either one dies, the other sister becomes available. Right? Okay. All right? Okay. Mishum dahavi yibama shahutra, because in this case, she was a yibama that was initially permitted. Then she became prohibited. Because the Shimon died, and therefore she became, Shimon died, you had two sisters, right, going to Levi, and Levi can't do Yibum to either one of them in that situation, right? Right? Then if one of those sisters dies, it's rather who trusts. Right? She becomes available again. Right? Tachzor lehetera rishona. Right? And she comes back to her initial status of being permitted. Okay? Now, Rabbi Yochanan says as follows. Metashniya, if the second one dies, sorry, mutar barishona. One is written. My Tama, what's the reasoning? Shekol Yebama, She'ein Ani Korei Ba B'Shat Nefila, because Rabbi Yehuda is saying, any Yebama, who I'm going to say, yeah, Rabbi Yehuda is, Rabbi Yochanan is saying, any Yebama who's not, so to speak, immediately available for Bia, in other words, to satisfy the requirement of the Torah, all right?
And it can't work.
Okay? Does work? Yibama, Yiboeleh, in that case, Hare Zo. Okay,
He never-
for he can't marry, right? He cannot, there's no requirement,
No, there's no possibility.
right? Well,
He
there's
can
no
never-
requirement of Yibum, therefore he can never marry.
No, it's worse than that. He doesn't have to do Khaliti. She's forbidden completely there.
Right.
It's as if she was simply his brother's wife and had a.
And they had children, right? That's it. Okay. The Rav Litlei Haistvara, and Rav doesn't hold this view, right? Va'amar Rav, va'amar. But didn't Rav say elsewhere? Kol isha she'enani korei ba b'shat nefila yibama yavo. Any woman at the time that she becomes yibama is immediately available. Her and you're right, all you need to do is be okay? She must be, even if it's against her will, so to speak. And if she's not available, that's,
No, here it's
don't do it.
here it's at the moment that
Her status, her
that her husband
dies.
she was already forbidden to the circumcision. So therefore she never reverts to being permitted. Whereas in the older widow, the previous widow, she was mutter, and then all of a sudden
We think that we can see Obama only at the time of the death of the man, or is it possible that she is, so to speak, a potential Yabama once she marries? That, right? In other words, some held that the woman does not become an actual Yabama until the death of her husband.
well, when else could she be a Yavama?
No, the Zika. When does the Zika start?
You didn't say that.
Yeah. When does the Zika start? Okay. All right.
Okay, that's a different question.
Okay. Does it start at the actual death of the husband?
That
Okay.
just intensified the question. Right. You can marry sisters to begin with.
Right. Hani Mili, Hechedekai Ba'apa Isur Achot Isha Da'araita. Here then we confront the prohibition of the sister of the wife, okay, from the Torah. But here, Zika de Rabbananhi, that the whole issue of this relationship is rabbinical. Eitive Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina challenges Rabbi. Say we have four brothers, right? Two of them are married to two sisters. and the two that married the sisters died. Okay. Hare elu cholzot v'lo mityabmot. We say in that situation, those get chalitza and they don't get yibum. V'amar. And why is that the case? Let one of the other brothers go ahead and perform chalitza to one of the other,
one woman.
to one woman. V'tahave rishona legabe idach kiyabama shehutrava ne'esra v'chazra v'hutra. And that first one then becomes like the other situation where we had a yibama who was initially permitted, then forbidden, and then returned to a permitted status.
Because we make an assumption that the older brother died
First, okay, that they didn't die at the same time,
exact same sex.
right? Okay.
We had that repaid.
Right. Tachzor leheter harishona. So let it then go back to the earlier status of being permitted. Amar le. So Rabbi Yochanan would respond, Achayot eini yodea mishanan. Regarding the issue of sisters, I don't know who taught it. Rather strange response by Rabbi Yochanan, right? Velema. So let him lay my chotzot. So let him say instead, why did he give that response? Let him give the following response. What do we mean when we say chotzot? Nami dikatani. Why? Because here also it says, right? Choletzet chada, that he basically does chalitza to one of them. Choletzot katani. But the text said in plural, he does chotzot to more than one, right? V'lei malei. So let him say my chotzot. What do we mean when we say chotzot? Chotzot the alma, chotzot in general. But, says the Gemara, all right, elu katan. It said these, right? V'lema. So let him say the chalitz leila rishona beresha. So let him say then that he does chalitza, this one, first one, the first widow first. And we're going to stop right there today. Okay? This was not
It gets worse. Before it gets better.
an easy Gemara.
There it is. So I was thinking
Yeah. Uh-oh.
chalitza me'al
Yeah.
is really is a leather. Chalitza a canvas.
You know how long it took me? Not till I went through all of art school with the notes, yeah, during Shabbos. Okay. Then at night I was using both colon and the Shinani. Who do you think had the best explanation? Yeah.
Always. That's always the case.
But you've got to be familiar with the